Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video I want to give you guys a build that I've been liking very much recently involving Quantum Reassembly Phoenix. Now Quantum Reassembly is a tech that has received a lot of changes but also a lot of buffs recently, and it now only costs 150 resources. This is so cheap that it's definitely worth running. Specifically with the techs that I'm about to mention, namely range, charge shot, and energy shield. This is, in my opinion, the best build if you want to run something like this. The charge shot really helps a lot to give your phoenixes enough damage to actually be able to kill some overleveled tarantulas or giants, whatever big unit your opponent may have on the board. So without further ado, let's get into the game and I'll show you guys how to set up this board. Alright, here we are. Now, immediately looking at the packs, aerial spec here is something that I've really been liking recently. It's been getting a lot of buffs, getting more HP in the recent patch, and getting more attack and HP for the air units. You can't really go wrong with it. Tarantula Fang, also a strong start. Quick Supply here would be playable as well. And honestly, the other packs aren't too bad either, but I really do like this as it allows me to go into Phoenixes rather early. Now, my opponent this game decides to go for Elite Specialists. Quite a spicy pick, I would say, but a pretty decent opener with Tarantulas and Marksman, so has pretty good shaft clear and pretty good DPS as well. And what I'm expecting here is him to go for something like some level 2 crawlers. Now, I will probably struggle knowing this, but there's not too much I can do about it. On the first round, I can already think about whether or not I would like a Phoenix, and considering the fact that he does have Tarantulas, I don't think buying a Phoenix here is too bad. I will be giving up a deployment, only able to purchase the one Phoenix, but at least I'll have the DPS to be able to kill those Tarantulas, and also the speed to be able to get into this tower, if it just so happens that my opponent is on the other side of the map. And it happens to be the case. And so here we find ourselves playing what I would like to call a crossfire as opposed to a headbutt. Now I get the tower rather quickly here. Benefit of those Phoenixes having a 16 meter per second base speed. Unfortunately, that also means that they get ahead of my Tarantulas, and so one of them gets taken out by the Marksman. The debuff timing here, not too good for me, considering a lot of the opponent's units were spreading out, and I wasn't able to reach them during the window I had. I am able to clear most of these crawlers though, getting some EXP for my Tarantula and all. It's not the worst first round. Against Elite with those pesky level 2 crawlers, sometimes you just have to accept that you won't be winning the first round. And so I take a bit of damage here. Now round 2, already I am offered 3 units. Stormcaller here, not really something I would want. I'm not thinking about Rhino either because Sabertooth is offered. And Rhino wouldn't go too well, or wouldn't do too well into the Saber, which does end up being the unit that my opponent picks. But I am thinking here about Arclights perhaps, giving myself just a little bit more chaff clear. Also having the crucial level on those Arclights to be able to one-shot the enemy level 2 crawlers, which in this specific scenario where my opponent is elite spec, is quite valuable. And so the more I was really thinking about this, because I could have picked the Sabertooth, I could have even picked the Stormcaller. I think this is slightly worse because my opponent does have those crawlers, and it might be tough dealing with those if I pick the Storms. And so I think here in the end, I do end up going for the Arclights. There they are. And what this allows to do me is I get the 2 deployments. I'm able to match the crawlers and hopefully stall this advance without having to level my tower. Now my opponent goes for the other option, which I would have had, which is trying to level the tower. So decides to level his tower there and not defend it too much. Also goes for a sneaky flank on this side of the map. But that does mean that he skips another deployment. And this is where you can see the awkwardness of round 2 free units being offered to Elite Specialist. I also decided to go for a missile there, hitting quite a lot of units, also getting rid of a crawler, and just trying to slow down the advance. I put down some fangs to try and help out. Make sure that I'm able to get this tower. And unfortunately, well, I do get it. We get it at about the same time. Those flank crawlers able to get in. And now it all comes down to the Phoenixes. But unfortunately, again, they get in front of my Tarantulas. And the marksmen are able to take them down. So round 2 here, also going in favor of my opponent. But I'm not too worried. I'm starting to get a pretty decent setup. Bunch of spells available here in round 3. Could go for the Incendiary Bomb if I want to try and burn down all of this. Looks quite juicy, to be honest. If I could hit that, kill the 3 marksmen, kill the crawlers. And I do decide to go for that. My opponent's still thinking, though. Also goes for it. Here I decide to start selling out of my Tarantula. Reason being is that the Tarantulas are quite slow. And I've already seen that he's willing to level his tower. So having 2 Tarantulas pushing into this tower really won't do all that much for me. I just need damage really to be able to take this down. And Tarantulas don't provide that. So it's better to just retrieve those resources and be able to spend them elsewhere. Opponent does realize that there was the threat of that Incendiary Bomb, puts down a nice shield protecting at least his central units, and utilizes the fire on the right side of the board there. I'm not sure how worthwhile this is for him. I don't have that many chaff units, and I mean, he did level this tower, but we'll take it. I decide to missile this crawler here because there's no cost-effective way of dealing with it for me right now. I decide to add another Phoenix, and this is where I click Charged Shot. The reason I do this is 1, I'm trying to get this tower a little bit quicker, and 2, my opponent has a lot of tanky units on his board. The spiders, that level 2 Sabertooth, I'm not going to be able to kill those fast enough without Charged Shot, and so that's the main reason that I go for it here. Now, obviously, the awkward bit is that my Arclights and my Phoenixes are sitting at about the same range. 93 for the Arclights, 95 now for the Phoenixes. But I might be able to remedy that in the future. We speed things up here. Right side, my opponent put down a Marksman, and he did manage to take down my Phoenixes as well as my Tarantula. But here we managed to strike back, if only by 400 hit points, and at least make sure that we don't lose too many hit points in the early game. Fortified Arclight show up. Laser Sight here, also quite a good pick, always solid. But the Fortified Arclights, I really like this because it solves the exact issue I have in the early game, right? It's a bit expensive for me to go for something like range. So instead, what I can do is pick Fortified Arclight. They lose the 15 range, and that makes sure that my Phoenixes have an easier time staying behind my Arclights. And what's more, I now get a good amount of hit points on those Arclights. I mean, look at this level 3, 37,000 hit points to be able to just stand in front, chaff clear, and, well, provide that front line for my Phoenixes to do their work. Opponent decides to really double down on the defense on this tower, perhaps a bit scared of the charge shot that I clicked, and goes for a Tarantula and a Fang on that side. I decide to start elite recruiting Arclights. After buying that Fortified Arclight, it's quite valuable. It also allows me to deal with this flank relatively well. And I get a bunch of levels on those Phoenixes, making their damage even scarier. One Crawler goes on the flank here because I did notice that his Marksman is all the way in the back. So if I can distract that, make sure that the Phoenixes don't get targeted, I should be able to get to the tower. At least that is the idea. Opponent picks up another unit. Third deployment, goes for a Fang right here in the front, trying to make sure that I don't get any insta-locks on the on his big units while also preventing a missile, perhaps. And I go for another missile here. I didn't quite pay attention the first time to see whether or not it hit the marksman. It doesn't. I'm going to say that this wasn't necessary, but it does help chaff clear at least a little bit. And perhaps it allows these phoenixes to get better locks this time around. And I mean, you can see how fast I am melting those tarantulas. Right side also paying off. That flank even pulling the tarantula backwards. And that means my phoenix can get in. And while he did level his tower, that's still a 7-second debuff. And certainly worth it for me to try and kill that tower. Now round 5, we get the earliest possible free units on the second rotation between round 5 and 7. Opponent goes for the triple Stormcaller, quite a powerful pack. And here I honestly could do the same thing. There is something to be said perhaps for like Typhoon, but Stormcaller just such a nice pack. I can sell one of them to get some money back, and then I can position 2 of them here to try and hit those fangs and hit these front fangs. Perhaps get some additional shots in on the Sabertooth and the Tarantulas on the left. And here I already decided to 1, grab the level, and 2, get my second tech on the Phoenixes. And the nice thing here is that you don't need to rush range on your Phoenixes if you know that you have units that will stay in front of them, right? Only click range if you see that your Phoenixes are really struggling. If they're not struggling, you can leave it be. Go for a different tech. Shield here, really nice, especially against the marksman. I can see that he doesn't run double shot, so it'll be quite annoying for him to deal with these. He will need 2 shots per Phoenix just to take them down, and that might just give my Phoenixes the additional time to put in an extra shot, or perhaps even kill the enemy marksman before they go down. I also decide to go for an even heavier flank, adding an Arclight there and also putting a Phoenix on the flank. Opponent adding yet another Tarantula though, really does not enjoy this flank. And you can see how much the Phoenixes are doing here. I mean, look at that damage. And here, I managed to get the tower because I have those shields on the Phoenixes. I take down the marksman. Left side still going swimmingly for me. We managed to take yet another round. Now round number 6. Super heavy armor here isn't really that valuable for me. All of these bonuses from things like Fortified Arclight are additive, not multiplicative. So you do get some diminishing returns. Plus, I'm buying quite a lot of Arclights. So rather than having one very large unit, I have like multiple medium-sized units. So I don't think it's worth going for the item here. Both of us seem to think the same. Nuke a bit too expensive at this stage of the game. And so we both skip. I get even more levels. All these Phoenixes now hitting level 3. Really scary amounts of DPS. I mean, 25k damage per shot per Phoenix. That's a lot. My opponent goes for the range on the Tarantulas, trying to take down my chaff even earlier. And here I decide to pick up some sticky oil bomb to try and slow down the advance. I was also considering something like incendiary bomb, but at least I know that this will be down. And 2, next turn I know that incendiary bomb will be available again. So if I put down the oil this turn, I get the benefit of him being slowed, and the next turn I can potentially set it on fire if I manage to land the incendiary bomb anywhere adjacent to this oil. And this is where I decide to pick up my third tech, now going for the Phoenix range. This was more so a response to the fact that I saw my opponent had elite marksman tech. I think it would have been correct as well to go for quantum reassembly. The reason I didn't do it is because Although I do have 4 packs of Phoenixes, I didn't think it was quite enough. And so I decided to go for the range here instead. Also, I did have the money available since most of my units are relatively cheap to buy. Managed to get a good snipe into that tower. And I mean, look at this Phoenix. It just one-shot that level 2 turret. But we do seem to be struggling with chaff clear right now. Phoenix is still able to do their thing though. As we take down the marksman. One more going down. Perhaps. Ooh, getting protected by his Stormcallers. Not quite. And now my Phoenix needs to clean up all of these Stormcallers who are actually providing a decent amount of chaff. It takes quite a while for the Phoenix to get through all that. And here I think I will be forfeiting round number 6. But it will only be to a marksman and perhaps a couple Stormcallers surviving. I'll take that. Not too bad. Haste module, smoke bomb, and improved firepower control system available. Haste mod and improved firepower control system, not really that valuable to me. Charge shot already gives me 175% boost on the Phoenixes. I don't really need more. At this point, I'm in overkill territory. So I decided to go for the smoke bomb instead. My opponent is, well, I was going to say mostly ground-based, but he's entirely ground-based. So if I can land this smoke somehow, that would be really, really good for me. Opponent, of course, does realize that he has to shield. So here we see the 2 bubbles coming out. I decide to put the smoke forward in an area that I think he will not be shielding, just to make sure that in case he does advance into me a little bit, his units will lose part of their range. And I decide to fire the other side, realizing that my opponent probably just fully shields the incendiary here. And instead I try to take down the chaff that was on this side, perhaps be able to hit the Stormcaller pack and allow my Phoenixes to get in a bit quicker. I also do put a shield down myself, not wanting to get hit by the smoke or the fire. And I put down 2 more Phoenixes, now setting up for the eventual quantum reassembly. I say that, I actually do pick it up this turn. So round 7, and we already have 6 packs of Phoenixes that are fully teched out. For those of you that don't know, quantum reassembly means that when a Phoenix dies, as long as you have at least 1 more Phoenix alive, after 15 seconds, the Phoenix will come back to life. It will be the same level that it was when it died, and it will have all the techs of your Phoenixes. So really quite powerful. You can see the animation here as a Phoenix that died on this side of the board is now respawning on the other side of the board. And this time around, we have enough of a swarm to be able to win a round. Now keep in mind that while normal Phoenixes deal their full damage, if your Phoenix at the end of a round is a respawned Phoenix from Quantum Reassembly, it will only deal a quarter of its base damage. So normally 1 Phoenix deals 100 damage. If it is respawned by Quantum Reassembly, it will only deal 25. This turn, both of us pick up the electromagnetic impact. Quite good for my opponent. We'll be able to hit probably 3 Phoenixes here. I think this will be able to stay out of it. But still, getting rid of all of those techs is a really nice thing for a spell that is so cheap. I decide to use it over here, expecting my opponent to double shield, so at least I'll be able to deal some damage. And I decide to go for Shielded Fangs. The reason is that my opponent is currently relying on Marksman, Tarantulas, and Stormcallers without Incendiary to chaff clear, and so they will definitely hit a wall with this tech being clicked. I also do decide to shield. I know my opponent will EMP. I can't save the Phoenixes. I don't want to go for something like Photon Bolt. I don't think that's great. But at least I can shield the Fangs from potentially being EMP'd and losing their shield. This side, by the way, not going too well for me. There's just too much. But at the same time, my opponent is also utilizing way more resources to defend the flank than I have committed there. So I'm pretty happy leaving this as is and trying to get this push going. Tower, by the way, is level 3. And this is where I'm starting to really struggle with the chaff there. So when I was playing this game, I was already saying to my chat, like, I really hope that I get something from the free units to help me out here. And the best thing to go with this comp would be Fire Badgers. The reason is that Fire Badgers are probably one of the best chaff clear units in the game. And they are very low range, which means that it's easy for Phoenixes with charge shot to stay behind them. And I mean, ask and you shall receive in this case, as Triple Badger does show up. So, of course, I immediately pick it up. This will help me immensely trying to get rid of all of the chaff on my opponent's board. I instantly click the range, and as you can see, it only goes up to 100, so the Phoenixes stay well behind them. And this is just such a nice comp to play. Of course, you can also try and go napalm in certain situations. Here, I'm not deciding to do that because I am kind of pushing into him. And honestly, he doesn't have that much chaff. So I think I should just be fine with range only. Opponent, by the way, does have the quick reload, so while he doesn't have double shots to deal with the Phoenixes, does have a tech that kind of allows him to dispatch them faster. I decided to go for some wasps here. Now, I don't currently run shield, which would have been much better, but if I can just distract his marksman for a little bit, I think that's good enough. I'm pretty satisfied with my DPS. I'm satisfied with my chaff clear as well. So I'm deciding to invest a little bit into wasps here. Also deciding to put a missile down here. I don't really want to have to deal with this Fang. And putting one of the Fire Badgers on the right side. Still trying to push in and get an advantage, even if for only 5 seconds of debuff. Now, whole board is on fire this turn. I couldn't really do anything there. One trick that you can do is that you can shield part of the oil that's on the ground, and then when it gets ignited, only the parts that are outside of the shield ignite, and the oil that is below the shields disappears. This is a little bit of a weird interaction, but it's something worth exploring, and in certain scenarios can really be an advantage. Now, most of my units died, but this is where you can see the Phoenix swarm. Refusing to die, respawning, and taking down the final units from my opponent. Again, I don't do too much damage. I mean, most of these Phoenixes do seem to be the original ones, so not too many quantum reassembled. Efficient giant manufacturing is not really something I want. I've committed to a 200 cost unit comp here, and I don't really have the space or the need for giants. And instead I decide to pick up fast teleportation to potentially go for some flanks on the other side, because this does seem to be rather open. Now my opponent here goes for a very nice answer, picking up triple wasps and going for the instant double tech into range and anti-air. So hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, goes for a counter to my wasps and also a counter to my phoenixes. Now I tried to be really cheeky in this scenario. I saw that you had 1 missile down, so trying to get these crawlers killed and then move in and get the debuff, putting the phoenixes behind a pack of wasps to make sure that these marksmen wouldn't instantly kill my phoenixes, and trying to get a good debuff. Now, unfortunately, I didn't expect these wasps to be here, so they probably will be turning. And what you see me do here is something that I do on occasion, because my oil is back off cooldown, and I'm expecting my opponent to shield. So I put down 8 missile sentries for a total of 8 times 5,000 equals 40,000 damage. And guess what has 40,000 hit points? Shields. So what I'm trying to do here is get rid of the shields he puts down, which does happen, and I am thus able to land the shield. This is basically EMP melter at home. If you don't want to buy yourself an EMP melter, and if you don't have the luxury of something like Missile Specialist, where your missiles deal 15,000 damage each, you can invest in 8 missiles to try and take down a shield. It is a bit cheesy, but in this case, it does actually work out wonders, and I am able to keep pushing in. Now, unfortunately here, these mines, they have a knack for towers, I tell you. The amount of times, like, all the units just ignore going for the tower, but the mines being so exceptionally fast decide to go for the debuff. It is unreal. But still, you can see even these rapid-fire marksmen are simply struggling to kill these phoenixes. And so I still managed to muscle my way through and deal a little bit of damage. Now, round 11, we get more free units. And this is the turn where every single spell is back available. So I was able to land the oil the last turn. This turn, I'm going to have to try and land oil, land the incendiary, land the smoke bomb, land the electromagnetic impact. And same thing for my opponent. Now, I don't really need any of these units. So what I do instead is I decide to sell out of one of the typhoons, and I can see an opening here, right? And I will be trying to push in and get a tower debuff here. Now, my opponent, of course, has access to the same spells, and if he manages to land them, they're equally juicy. So what he's going to do is pick up the melters and go for electromagnetic barrage to take down my shield at the start of the round and be able to land his spells. What I do is I stack the EMP, which does 35,000 damage, and I put down 2 missiles. The reason for this is that I was perhaps thinking my opponent might put down a missile interceptor. If I put down 2, at least one of them should get through, and that should deal the additional 5,000 damage to be able to break both of the shields and thus land the smoke as well as the fire. And here you can see me buying 2 level 2 Phoenixes, going for temp range, temp speed. Of course, we're loaning, get the mobile beacon, get some crawlers in front of the Typhoon, and move into the tower. So both of us are successful in our endeavors to annoy the opponent. The fire lands, the smoke lands, nobody can see anything except the air units. My push is successful too, as I managed to get a debuff there. And now everything will just come down to, can I kill these wasps? Typhoon's not doing that bad of a job, able to get rid of almost the entire pack of wasps on the right side. And my phoenixes on this end are still battling valiantly, trying to overcome the mines that are being spawned, the pack of fangs, and withstanding the shots from this level 7 marksman in the back of the map with a laser sight. And I almost win, but unfortunately some of those phoenixes were quantum reassembled, so I deal a little bit less damage, and we have to go into round number 12. Ion Blast shows up. I mean, we both have to insta-pick it. Look at our boards. We're both standing in a pretty neat horizontal line. I would say it's probably even more so for him than for me. My opponent has Sticky Oil Bomb available again. Now here I decide to double tech my own wasps, trying to counteract his wasps. And I also decide to put down an additional pack of crawlers. The reason I do this is because I know that he will be missiling this pack of crawlers. But what I'm hoping is that these 24 crawlers will be able to distract the marksman as well as the wasps for long enough that my wasps can perhaps trade against his. Right? Providing additional distraction and adding a unit that he won't be expecting and so won't be missiling. Now the ion beam here from my opponent is kind of weird. I think it would have been way better for him to try and hit my units on this side. There's definitely much more to hit, and just because there is so much to hit, it's unlikely that he would miss that much. An opponent here decides to go for ground spec. I was a little bit surprised about this. I guess that the Fire Badgers are relatively tanky, but I think Elite would have been better in this case. It would have given him that little extra range just in case I do decide to go for this play and match his techs. And it would provide him with ample damage to get rid of, well, the Badgers, right? I don't have any super tanky giants on the board that would warrant ground spec. And yeah, you can see the ion beam here, not the best. It does manage to take down one of my Typhoons, but all the Phoenixes are safe. I even have some late chaff arriving. The Wasps are doing a great job. I managed to get the engagement the way I want it. And this should be all she wrote, as my entire air army is now coming over to the right side to finish the job, clean up the final units, and take home the W. There we go. So a game where we didn't play any giants. We managed to make do with our 200 cost units. Mostly the Fire Badgers and the Phoenixes. So if you ever see Fire Badgers being offered and you want to try this build out, if you have easy access especially, or you already have Phoenixes on the board, do try this out. I think this build does work much, much better on aggro or defense in a scenario where at least there isn't a big distance between you and your opponent. But it is a lot of fun and it has a lot of potential. The charge shot really enables the Phoenixes to even deal with the biggest of targets, right? Like these melters, level 2 tarantulas. You could see them melt as soon as I went for charge shot. And yeah, the Fire Badgers are just really, really nice to be able to provide that chaff clear. Early game, right? Badgers have 60 base range, so you can just keep them as your front line. Click charge shot on your Phoenixes, and you won't even need to bother clicking range early because the Badgers will be sitting well in front of your Phoenixes. If you like this, if you've tried out this build, do let me know down in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with my latest YouTube content. Go check me out on Twitch if you want to see me play live. And with that being said, see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.